In this session, let us look at the second way of handling an exception, or I would say the most appropriate way of providing the recovery steps from an exception, and that is the try-catch block. Let us take the same example where we have this ABC method and we have an input stream object and we have this checked exception, which is file not found exception. So adding a throws declaration is something we already saw in the previous session. Now let's see this try-catch. Let's click on it and see it creates a try block and takes the code which is error prone. Now in the try-catch block, just concentrate on this part, the first block that is called as try block. We always take the error prone code, the code which might generate some exception. We always take it inside the try block, and if at all it generates the exception when the execution occurs, if at all this code generates the exception, then the second block is executed, that is called as catch block. So that is the try block and catch block. Inside the catch block, we can specify which specific exception to catch. So in this case, we are specifying catch file not found exception, and this is the E that is just specifying the exception object. And then over here, inside the catch block, we can provide the steps what application should do after this exception is occurred. Now in this case, we are just printing what is the exception is. Now here e.print stack trace is just printing the stack trace. Let's see what else we can do with this E object. E dot, let's say get message will just get us the exception message, or E dot to string will just convert it to string, and then not just printing, but we can provide the actual steps what we want to do in the actual application to recover from this exception, and all goes over here inside the catch block. Okay, so in this case, let's run this program. Let's first call the method over here. Now when the method ABC is called, you no more see the compilation error. Remember in the last session you see the compilation error over here, and that is because the exception was not handled. It was just declared at the ABC method level. So it was mandatory for main method also to either declare it or handle it. But now it is a different case. Now we have already handled the exception inside the ABC itself. So no one else have to do anything about it now. You can directly use the method ABC. And in this case, I know that this particular file does not exist. So we are going to get the file not found exception, and then the catch block will get executed. So when we run the program, we see this first thing, it's coming from this message. The second thing is just the exception in the string, and e.print stack trace is just printing everything. But the point to be noted here is the execution is not terminated when the exception occurs. Like for example, if you have some other lines of code, I know that this ABC is going to throw some exception and we have the steps to recover, and after that we have some more code in the application. So that executes, the execution continues. When you run the program, you are getting the error, that's fine, but the application is not terminated, the program is not terminated. That is the most important thing over here. We have an exception, we catch it, we provide the steps to recover from it, and program continues. That's the most important thing. So what try-catch block does, whatever code is error prone, we put it inside the try block. We anticipate what kind of exceptions can be there and create a catch block. Now when I say what kind of exceptions can be there, can there be multiple catch blocks? Yes, we can have multiple catch blocks. Like if you think that the code inside the try block can throw multiple exceptions, you can create multiple catch blocks. Like for example, second catch block, I'm just creating a generic catch block for all exceptions. So you can just say exception, create object E1, and over here I'm simply going to say E1 dot get message, and then you can provide whatever steps. So likewise, you can create multiple catch blocks for different type of exceptions, and when that type of exception is occurred, the program will jump to that particular catch block, and then those steps will be performed to recover from it. Interesting. Whenever a particular type of exception is occurred, the program will jump to that particular catch block where you are catching it, and the steps will be performed, whatever steps you have mentioned over there to recover from the exception. Now there is one thing to remember when we put the multiple catch blocks is we should not put the more generic block before the specific block. Like for example, we cannot do something like this. We cannot have an exception block first and then file not found exception block, because exception is a parent of file not found, because that's a super class which kind of eat up all the exceptions. So this file not found will not be reached. If you look at there, it says unreachable catch block. All the exceptions, though it be a file not found or any other type of exception, will already get catched by this exception block, which is more generic than file not found. So when you provide the multiple catch blocks, be specific that we provide the subclasses first and then the more generic ones, then the superclasses. So in this case, file not found is a subclass, so it should come first and then the superclass exception should come later. Like for example, the IO exception. The file not found has IO exception as the parent, so it should come after the file not found, and then whatever steps you want to provide over here. But make sure you cannot use the IO exception block after the exception block, because exception is more generic than IO exception. So be sure to be putting more specific exceptions first and then more generic ones. So that's the only precaution we need to take. Okay, again, the try catch block is used to catch the exceptions from the error prone code. If the exception occurs, the program will jump to catch block and run the steps, whatever steps they have provided, and the program will continue. What if error occurs inside the catch block? Again, this is an interview question. Inside the catch block, we have provided some code, and that code generates some other exception. What will happen? In that case, program will terminate unexpectedly unless you have another try catch block inside the catch. That is also fine. You can have a try catch inside the catch block, but if you do not have that, and unfortunately the catch block generates some other exception, then program will terminate. Can this try and catch block used for both checked and unchecked exceptions? Yes, you can use it for both checked and unchecked exceptions. And there is something called as finally block, which we will see it in the next session.